Hey, this isn't a Kingdom Hearts review, and yeah, it's not. I wanted to do a quick review of Code Vein. This is a little bit unscripted, and by a little bit I mean there's no script, so I apologize if I wind up rambling. I'm going to try and keep it short, but basically I didn't have a video for Thursday, and I wanted to do this. So, anyway, I'm going to touch on Code Vein real quick. For those of you who don't know, Code Vein is a new Dark Souls-esque game made by Bandai Namco and Shift. You take the role of a revenant, basically a vampire who keeps getting resurrected every time they die, yada yada yada. It's pretty by the numbers in terms of Soulsborne gameplay. You run around, you die, you get good, you backstab things, that kind of thing. One of the big differences is this has AI partners. Yeah, I know Bloodborne had some, and I don't know if the Dark Souls games do or not. I haven't gotten very far in those. But one of the big differences is these AI partners can accompany you through the entire game. And admittedly, this does reduce the difficulty quite a bit. You can, however, turn them off, so if you want to play it like a standard Soulsborne and do things solo, that's an option. That being said, yeah, I really like the AI partners. Each one has their own style, and they do have various amounts of use. I personally stuck with Yakumo until I unlocked Io. They seem to be the most useful. The weapons all have different styles and everything. There's various passives, weapon skills, and then you've got like your magic skills and whatnot. These are earned through blood codes, which you get either from talking to certain people, by progressing the game, or by picking up vestiges and restoring them. You do that at your home base, and every time you restore a vestige, you get a character's backstory. Some of these characters are already dead by the time the game takes place, and it does help build up the world. Like, there's a straightforward story, unlike the standard Bloodborne or Dark Souls or whatever, where it's mostly just told in the lore. This one has both a main plot that's told to you outright, and then the stuff that's world-built through the lore and whatnot. Personally, I prefer it this way because I'm a big dum-dum and like having the story told to me outright, because I'm not very smart sometimes. So how about the story and characters? Well, the story is nothing mind-blowing. It's pretty straightforward, though it's told in a compelling manner. The characters are what really sell it. Some of them even averted my expectations, particularly Yakumo, who I expected to be the generic meathead muscle bruiser, but instead he wound up being sympathetic and was probably the most grounded character in the group. Graphically, it's pretty nice looking. The character models are nice and detailed and suit the art style well. They have a wide variety of expressions, although sadly you don't see them much, as you tend to either have the purifier masks on in cutscenes, or you're getting a static conversation where their mouths aren't animated. The locations look very detailed and actually have a huge variety of them. It's not all destroyed buildings and city streets. The game also has an absolutely stellar create-a-character system. I know, I'm a customization whore and I tend to love them in general, but this one has some really great little features. However, all this beauty does come at a cost. There are performance issues, at least on the base PS4. While it never degenerates into chugging, there are obvious frame drops. That being said, my footage does not properly replicate the experience because I'm a big dum-dum and recorded it at the wrong resolution. Because I recorded it at 1080p, my PVR was reduced to 30 frames per second. It goes above 30, and it's usually pretty high, though I wouldn't say it's consistently 60. Still, that's my bad. Sorry, I goofed. The worst performance issues usually come from the transition areas in between one map and another. Probably the closest it comes to being unplayable, but since there's no enemies in these areas, it's not a big deal. Though there are occasions where you'll come to a door that's filled with fog, which more or less says, hey, we're still loading. There are also the occasional glitches, but I didn't find any that were too terrible, thankfully. The worst glitch I encountered had me getting stuck to an NPC. Thankfully, this was after I had just saved and arrived at my home base, so I didn't lose too much time, but it was still an aggravation. I also want to touch on the frame drops real quick. They're not terrible. The game never became unplayable or anything. They're noticeable, but they shouldn't harm your ability to actually play the game. Perhaps the game's weakest aspect is actually its audio. While the voice acting is fine, everyone's well cast and give good performances, the music is flawed. That's not to say it isn't well composed. It actually sounds great. It's that there's just not much variety to it. You'll hear the same handful of tracks countless times throughout the entire game, and it does start to grate on the nerves a little. I also want to cover the blood codes real quick. Think of them like classes. Each one is geared towards specific uses. They affect your stats, they can affect weapon mobility, movement speed, and each has their own skills attached to it. The skill system in particular is really nice. Once you learn a skill, you can then master it, either through use or by using up various resources. Once mastered, you can attach these to any blood code. This essentially means you can prioritize specific skills to your taste, rather than simply to what class you're using. Of course, some skills do have specific requirements, as do weapons, so you can't use everything with, well, everything, unless you set it up specifically for that. I also like that you can change your blood code at practically any time. You just open up the menu. Boom, that easy. Beyond that, I don't think the game really changes much with the standard Soulsborne formula. When people say it's Dark Souls with anime titties, yeah, it kind of is. I find it to be the sum of all of its parts. It doesn't necessarily do anything mind-blowing or unique in the genre, but what it does do, it does well. I feel like it's more polished than the average Soulsborne, or at least I personally found it less janky and clunky. Obviously, people with more experience in the genre may feel differently. So, do I recommend Code Vein? Well, probably. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's definitely an acquired taste. I'm sure Soulsborne regulars will enjoy it. They might find it a bit easier, at least with AI partners on, but hey, you can turn them off. As for standard action gamers, it might be a little too slow-paced for their taste. But then again, it might also give them something new to try. Personally, I recommend trying the demo. If you've got a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One, the respective stores have the free trial, so it's worth giving it a shot. Unfortunately, PC owners are left out in the rain. Personally, I enjoyed the game. I'm glad I took the risk on it. I stepped out of my comfort zone for it, and I think it paid off. I'm hoping the upcoming updates and DLC will add more to a game that I've already greatly enjoyed. Plus, if you're just in it for the fan service, my goodness, this game has you covered. Thank you guys so much for watching. Agree? Disagree? Let me know in the comments. I know this one was a little bit shorter and not in as much detail, and I apologize for that. Maybe in the future I'll do a more in-depth review. But hey, there's plenty of other videos you can watch on the channel, so why not check some of them out?